If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland Street Scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking true stories need no embellishment.
Emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online. Email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com. Digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages. Create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. How are you? Welcome to the show. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. What a day. Okay, and if you want to find me, you need to hire a PI. Go to OppermanInvestigations@gmail.com. And by the way, listen, no kidding around. If you're in trouble and you need help, hurry up and get a hold of me because I'm about to raise my rates. Okay, I haven't raised my rates. I've been looking at like 10 years, man. Okay, you're going to freaking... And it was a bargain back in those days. So if you need some help, you got a problem, I'm here to solve problems. 800-572-9762. You can email me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, we should be sure to check out our Patreon. Got a whole bunch of content going up in Patreon. We sent out a MailChimp earlier today to tell you about all the new stuff we put up in Patreon. Also, to keep it, get on our mailing list, you know. We're going to be sending out an email every Friday night updating you on what's new in Patreon. And then also, too, what I'm going to be talking about at 8 p.m. live Friday night. So we have an ad-free show we did a few months back about Lauren Boebert. Oh, no, that's an old one. That one's like months and months old. Lauren Boebert is a criminal. That's by that woman who has the... what is that? People are so weird. Then a show about... who was that guy? The Superfly Jimmy Snuka. And the death of his girlfriend. And then we got Octopus of the Deep State in Haiti about the human trafficking in Haiti. This goes way beyond all the other reporting you've seen in the past about Haiti and that woman Silsby. This is all new stuff. All new. Then we have some links to some live content we put up for free this week to the Alex Jones trial. What a week that's been, huh? If you've been following that, I'm going to be talking about that later on. I'm going to be talking about... I'll go run over a lot of misconceptions about the email, the text messages that people are confused about, the discovery being turned over, people are just confused about some reporting in the news about child porn being found on the phone. That's also incorrect. So I'm going to be going over a lot of stuff, correcting a lot of misinformation that's out there reported. Just the punitive judgment came in just hours ago, just not even 2 hours ago. Another $45 million, so it's a total of $50 million. Although I'm hearing some conflicting reporting about a cap on punitive damages in Texas. I'm not even sure what state this trial was in. So it might have been Connecticut. I don't know. A long day, let's put it that way. But I'm going to be telling you, talking about Alex Jones. And also my personal involvement with some of the characters in this trial. Some of the people that Alex Jones was relying on for his reporting on Sandy Hook, which is mainly Wolfgang Halbig. And the other one is Professor Jim Fetzer, who I know both of them. And I have very little opinion of both of them. As a matter of fact, you can go to my archives and look for shows I did called Hookers and Blow. And it's about Sandy Hookers. And then it's also about Hank Asher, who was a cocaine smuggler who was involved in scrubbing the Florida voting rolls in 2000 that flipped the state of Florida to Bush over Gore. And all that reporting was confirmed later on, too, all that stuff about Hank Asher by Cynthia McKinney, and also, too, by Megan Walsh, the daughter of John Walsh, who was close friends with Hank Asher. And so Megan Walsh was friends with Hank Asher's daughter. So if you listen to that interview I did with Megan Walsh, we mostly get into that stuff. Pretty good content there. Okay. Then there's another show with Kelly Benensky. And it's kind of hard to tell what it's about. It's called here The Woman Condemned. But really what the story with Kelly Benensky is... she became friends. First of all, she had some friend who killed and he picked up some woman. He was living in a garage on the side of his parents' house. He picks up this woman at a liquor store, takes her back to the garage, kills her in the garage, dismembers her in the garage, and barbecues her in the backyard, tries to feed some barbecue parts to his friend. Now, there's no way. There was no bathroom in that garage. There's no way he was torturing her in the garage. He had to be traipsing back and forth, covered in blood after dismembering this body. Walking through his parents' house, and no charges against the parent, and no charges against friends of his who he said, hey, you know how we've always talked about wanting to kill and barbecue a woman? Would you like to come over and eat? And no charges against them either. Unbelievable, you know. So that's Kelly Benensky. It's the first interview she ever did in her life, a radio interview. And then NT Lawyer, the show I did with NT Lawyer, ad-free. The latest one was all about Johnny Depp and Heard and all that kind of stuff like that. It's really hard to believe that Johnny Depp is such a saint. Hard to believe when you hear the facts from people who know him and people who worked for him and people who know information about him. Brian Wilson, Blood on the Tracks, an activist, Vietnam era, was protesting, and they was lying down on his railroad tracks, and the train sped up, paralyzed them. Frederick Dannon, Hitman, about the music industry, and Henry Vincent, Confessions of a DC Madam. I told you about this one last week. Exclusive. This is the guy behind the Franklin cover-up. This is the guy. This is the madam. He provided the prostitutes. This is the guy who was being blackmailed by Lawrence King and Craig Spence. This is the guy that all the payments were going through his credit card merchant processing system machine that he ran for his funeral business. So all the people out there who love to tell you about Franklin cover-up and this and that and all that stuff, this is the guy. This is the guy, and you can hear from the horse's mouth. Instead of listening to all these filtered people who listened to one of my shows 10 years ago and then went out and read a bunch of books, you can actually listen to the guy himself. Okay? Not that I'm bitter. Okay, and if you like our show, check out our archives. Go to our archives. I played some archives this week, stuff about Alex Jones, Hookers and Blow I played. Alex Jones claiming he was hacked when people could see on the screen his tranny porn links on his phone. All those, and his lawsuits and his scandals, his child custody and divorce lawsuits, where he said it was just all performance art, and it really wasn't news. Fascinating. He says in one court it's performance art. He says in another court it's news. It's free speech. I'm allowed to ask questions. If you ever have to testify in court for anything in your life, I encourage you to find these videos on YouTube of Alex Jones testifying and do the opposite. This man is a lawyer's nightmare. To have a client like that on the witness stand, acting the way he did, it is so counterproductive. But we're going to get into all of that this evening on the Opperman Report. But you got to find all our archives at Spreaker.com. If you go to Spreaker.com, and I encourage you to go to OppermanReport.com and sign up to our mailing list. But you go to Spreaker.com, you sign up for free. There's a chat room. I get an email notification when I put up new content. And all the archives are there. You can search the archives on Spreaker.com. There's a search feature on there. A lot of people have trouble finding it. But if you just put in Opperman Report, Franklin cover-up, Opperman Report, Mafia, Opperman Report, Jim Jones cult, all the shows come up. And you can just find the topic there. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, did you ever do a show on so-and-so? On Heidi Fleiss? You just go there and you find it. It's right there. It's so easy to find. And you're asking me to find the show for you. And it's the same. I'm going to do the same process I'm telling you to do now. So just do it and leave me alone. Real quick, I've done some shows about Ariel Castro, the Cleveland man who abducted Amanda Berry and McKnight and DeJesus, the three girls. And I'm in touch with some people who have worked on some reporting on this story. As you know, if you go back in the past, I've given you some really super exclusive reporting on that story, especially about how his ex-wife's new common-law husband was set up by the daughters, encouraged by Castro to accuse him of abusing the daughters. And then he got actually probation. This guy got convicted. And even after all this stuff came out about Castro and the daughters, that he couldn't even get his conviction overturned, And he talked to the FBI about Castro. Castro says he talked to the FBI. Said there's a lot of stuff unreported in all this. I've reported to you in the past that in one of these cases, one of these missing girls, I believe it was McKnight. No, it was De Jesus, the last one. That when she turned up missing and the police were there making a big crime scene, he was helping the police put up the crime scene tape around the missing girl's home. Now, we had one listener who was just so confused. She said, Ed, I've read every book on the case. I've never heard that story. And how could he be putting up crime scene tape when he was in custody? He had been arrested, Ed, thinking that I was talking about his own home there. We're talking about the victim's home, not his home. He wasn't arrested for any of these victims until years and years later. He held them captive for many years, if that's not clear to the simplest of minds. But, a couple of things, too, I discovered, he could have gotten as little as 10 years for holding those young girls captive all that time. And according to some reports, as many as 5 infants were killed, were murdered. Pregnancies aborted and through abuse of the mother. Just outrageous. But one of the things that's so unreported, even in this latest batch of reporting of these people I'm talking to, was a shock to them, was that his daughter used to run away from home and go to that house, and she knew those other girls. So she was visiting that home where these other girls were being held captive. She could see them. There was mirrors. There was chains. There were chains in the kitchen. There were chains in the bathroom. There were chains all over that freaking house. Okay, and this daughter wound up stabbing her own infant daughter and went to prison for that. Now, that's hard. You never see that one reported anywhere. That's exclusive to me. You're going to hear that. So there's that stuff there. But what I just found out brand new is that in his first marriage, his first home where he lived with his first wife and his children from his first marriage, he had barricaded that home and used to lock them in that home when they left. So these kids grew up living in a locked home as prisoners. His own biological children, not these young girls that he had kidnapped, who were all friends of his daughter, by the way, who stabbed her own baby. So there's a lot more shenanigans going on to this. And more neighbors have come out since all this and says, yes, we did see young women in the backyard in chains, and we never called the police. When this first came out, I called up everyone, every house on that block. I called up everybody. I spoke to everybody there. Mostly they didn't speak English, so I had to interpret through children who lived in the home, who were bilingual, who were speaking on behalf of their parents. And that was very difficult to communicate because you don't want to talk about too much graphic kind of content with kids. But anyway, I could talk about that case forever. But I'm in touch with some new people who are reporting on that, who are reporting more than I've seen in the past. So more and more is coming out about that. Tonight, after this live show, what we have is, first of all, I have David Wheeler from American Muckraker Pack Incorporated returning to the show. He's the one with the FireBobert.com website. He's the one that had the Fire Cawthorn website, who brought out all that information about Madison Cawthorn, the videotapes and all the allegations, photographs, all the bizarre behavior of Madison Cawthorn that cost his reelection. And now he's focused his attention on what's her name there? Lauren Boebert. Okay, so I had him on the show. We were the first radio interview he did on that content that came out. This was national news all over the country. And then what happened was it all came to a screeching halt. And I did a whole show about this a couple of weeks back called Certificate of Authenticity. Because Dan Deal, a CNN reporter, did an article called Fact Check and said that Mr. Dan Wheeler and American Muckrakers had gotten all this information incorrect. And it turned out, even when you read their article, that only half of the information recorded had some kind of minor errors. And even then, it was so insignificant that it was ridiculous. So anyways, I had Mr. Wheeler back on the show. And we go over all of that, plus his problems he had with CNN and Dan Deal about reporting off the record. Okay, let's get into this first. Coming up after that, I have another show with it's called Unmask Alice, LSD, Satanic Panic, and the Imposter Behind the World's Most Notorious Diaries. Now, this is about the story about Go Ask Alice, that book, and you see the TV show. I enjoyed the movie very much. I never read the book, but I know my sister read the book, and the kids my age read the book. So this fellow here, Rick Emerson, who's some kind of a radio DJ from the past, wrote this book. Took him many, many years to write the book. And, I agree with most of what he has to say about this Sharon Sands, I think it is, Sharon Gans, who wrote the book, supposedly anonymously. And then there was some kind of a suspicious behavior on her part. But the thing is, at the very end, because he goes into how it created satanic panic. And I asked him, well, okay, well, give us an example of the satanic panic. And he's talking about, all our cases like McMartin and stuff, I have to question if the effort he put in to investigate satanic panic and McMartin is at the same level he investigated the rest of this, what's it worth? But I would, encourage you to check out that show there. But back to the whole Lauren Boebert situation, because one of the things I want to talk to you about is off the record. Dan Wheeler had some issues with, David Wheeler, I think is Wheeler from the American Muckrakers pack, who's going after Lauren Boebert, had some issues with Dan Deal from CNN, who did the big article called Fact Check. He had some issues with him because he had sent him some information, and he had put at the top of the email, off the record for your eyes only. And Dan Deal went and shared it with other reporters, third parties. And most of it was just, Wheeler admitting, hey, we got this wrong, we got that wrong. Sorry about that. We're going to post a correction. And some of this is just so conflated that even I would guarantee you, just about every listener who knows about the Explore Talent and the SugarDaddyMeet.com website and her alleged activity as an escort on the escort website and have that confused with the Explore Talent website. Like, there's such minutia in that everyone's confused about it. Everyone has those two websites conflated. Everybody has those photographs conflated. But I'm saying everybody does. The only reason I don't is because I have such an intimate involvement with ExploreTalent.com from Las Vegas. Because I actually did an undercover job inside their headquarters. Over there across the street from Wayne Newton's house. Okay, where at the time it was being run as you would impersonate young ladies and get them to sign up to a webcam site, And then it changed operations into this Explore Talent, which is a site to lure gullible people who want to be in the entertainment business in the hopes that they could get auditions, okay? And some poor people I met on there, over the years, actually thought they were going to make enough money to help feed their family. They were on food stamps and thought, oh, this is an opportunity for me to make some extra money and help my family. And I would have to break the news to them that, no, sorry, you should get your money back as quickly as you can. So I had Mr. Wheeler on the show back. And he had a beef back and forth with the CNN about this information being off the record. Okay, and CNN kind of laughed back at him and said, well, it's not off the record until we say it's off the record. Ha, 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 ha. Now, I deal with this all the time. And very often, because I'm privy to so much privileged information that sometimes I'll know something and I'll want to share it or leak it to a reporter, and I say, listen, this is off the record. You can't attribute this to me. It's off the record. And sometimes you'll start telling them and you say, hey, listen, by the way, this is off the record. And they'll say, yeah, don't worry, that's cool. Okay, so this whole business about playing hardball with off the record is bad form, okay, in my opinion. Now, but what I have a problem is with these reporters who love to get you on the phone and sit around talking off the record, quote unquote. A lot of times it's just gossip. These just guys just being gossiping and rumors. Let's talk off the record. And when they'll come to me as a private investigator, okay, and they want to ask me about something I'm working on, and they'll say, well, that's okay, Ed, just tell me off the record, okay? And this is shocking to me that they would even consider this, and it's just stop and think, okay? Because here I am. Let's say they're not a reporter, okay? Let's say they're my milkman or they're my mailman or they're the girl cutting my hair. And are you trying to tell me that if you hire me to work on your case and I'm just allowed to talk to my hairdresser and tell her, hey, I'm working on this, a client of mine just got raped by so-and-so, and got raped and molested and we're trying to get this money. And his father is so-and-so and he's paying the bill. Yeah, I'm going to say that? Of course not. I have an obligation to my client confidentiality. So for these reporters to think that I would breach that just off the record to talk to them, it is just so bizarre to me that they wouldn't just say, well, of course your first loyalty would be to your client, your paying client who's invested their trust in you. And of course you're not going to share that information with me, whether it's off the record or on the record. It just makes no freaking sense. And we're going to get into this a little bit later on with this Alex Jones stuff, because I tell you, sometimes I would love to tell you about even a situation that I draw the line as far as off the record goes. Is I would love to tell you about people that have tried to hire me that I turned them down, okay? But I don't. Okay, I would love to tell you. There's names you would recognize right away. That people will come to me and say, well, Ed, so-and-so says this and so-and-so says that, and they disagree with you about this or that, and they believe in, let's say they believe in whatever, like Sandy Hook or something like that, right? And I would love to tell them, oh, yeah? Well, so-and-so came to me and tried to hire me, and when I saw what this guy's up to, and the quality of his work and the quality of information, I declined to work for him, okay? But I won't even say that. First of all, I got to tell you, it's a selfish reason I wouldn't do that, because then another potential client will hear this and say, oh, boy, if I go and ask Ed about my case, and he's going to go on here and start rambling my name to the whole world that I was too stupid to be hired by her, or that I'm crazy or something. And so that's one reason I don't do that. But the other reason is just ethics. Of course you're not going to do that. You can't expose a potential client. And I got to tell you, too, a lot of times people will come to me and I'm just doing a favor for them. They're not even paying me. I'm giving them free advice. I'm giving them sometimes free help, free searches I'll do for some of these bastards. Okay. They'll sucker me into doing free work for them. And even then, I have no client confidentiality with these people. It's just a favor. And then sometimes too, even that they'll betray me later on and say crap about me, say crap about my daughter. And I know all kinds of dirt about them. I know that they're complete and utter frauds. Okay. And I still can't come out and say, hey, you know what? This guy came to me, tried to hire me to prove his wild claims. And then we spent a good hour on it. And my conclusion is he's full of crap. Okay. If he had gotten sued, he would have lost. Okay. All right. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. So that's the whole thing about off the record, one. And this issue about not being able to talk, who my clients are, whether they're a client or not. Now, another thing I'd like to touch on, okay, because we kind of touched on it a bit last week. I was talking about how a guest will come on the show and they don't quite understand who I am and what I do and what I've done with my life and the things I've been involved with. And we'll be talking, and they'll mention a name, and I say, oh, yeah, I know. And I won't come right out and say during the interview, oh, yeah, I know so-and-so. Oh, yeah, I helped them. Oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. That way I worked on something with this. Oh, yeah, sure. And so, but then maybe during the break I'll mention it, or after the show I'll mention it, Or another thing that'll happen too a lot of times is after the show, they'll get so much freaking response from the show from like really like credible people, like people, people are in the business, people, with the Pulitzer Prizes, and stuff like that, will contact them. Oh, I heard you on the Hour Report. And they say, oh, you heard me on that little podcast, that little YouTube channel? You heard me there? So, oh, yeah, we heard you, man. But, I was on his show 10 years ago. Oh, yeah, I've listened to him. He had so-and-so on the show. So then, and did you know he was involved in this? He was involved in that? And then I'll either be contacted by that guest again saying, hey, I'd like to hire you, or I'd like to work with you. Hey, we need a private investigator for this project we're working on, for this film deal or whatever, a consultant. We'd like to hire you. So that's why a lot of times you'll hear the second time the guest comes on, and you'll say, oh, what a great rapport you had that time. Because, maybe we've worked off the air. Or maybe even during the break, I've kind of shared with them things I've been involved in. This is, you mentioned so-and-so. I've known him for 20 years. We worked back in New York together, back in the commission trial. So that's the whole situation there. And I kind of joke around. And when you listen to me, especially when I was interviewed on TrueAnon by Brace and Liz Francic there, and they said, well, who is Ed Opperman? And I would go on to make a joke. But years ago, when I was being interviewed for a documentary film series pilot, and they asked me, well, who is Ed Opperman? My response is, this is who I am. And I went through some of my credentials in the past of my life. And this has put me in a place of life experience and connections and wisdom, and just kind of savvy, that it's put me in a place where people can come to me with their problems, and I can use my resources and my experience to solve their problems. So a lot of times, too, you'll hear a guest on this show, then they've come to me later on to help them solve their problems. And I know a lot of people like to laugh at me and stuff like that, and I do kidding around, and I do fool around with you guys. But some very, very, very serious people have come to me in one day, an Olympic coach, a woman who was a doctor, a psychiatrist who had a TV series, and a litigation around a huge celebrity pop star, all in one day came to me. And let me tell you something. I took care of all their problems that day and really charged not even $1,000, so I definitely do need to raise my rates. So as much as I joke around, I am involved in very, very serious stuff. Okay. And I'm involved in some very serious stuff right now. As a matter of fact, we have some new information about it's an infidelity situation about some very, important people in the world. And when I have this information, it's not that I got it from a YouTube channel or from, something like that, or reading an article or reading a book. I got this information from the wife who's being cheated on. So that's how we know this. Okay. So that's the kind of stuff that I do. And that is Who Is Ed? I should have called the show Who Is Ed Up? Who is Ed Opperman? Okay, so Alex Jones. Oh my God! Like I said, where do we start? One thing is this guy, as far as a witness goes, is every attorney's nightmare. He is every legal defense team's nightmare to have this guy pop up and to have to take the witness stand. Now, one thing you may not know about this litigation that's been going on since, I believe, 2018 or 2019 is that this is the seventh lawyer working for Alex Jones. He's gone through 6 other lawyers. So he's already gone through hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. And I even understand he's even stiffed a couple of these lawyers too, is the word that I've gotten. Now, because nobody wants to work with Alex Jones, okay? And by the way, too, people are highly critical of Jones's attorney, that he mistakenly sent over this discovery by accident. He was supposed to send it over, okay? He was withholding it unlawfully that they were fined for, but mistakenly sends it over that he should have sent it over. It was just so bizarre. But can you blame him when you're trying to, you're in active court, you're in active litigation, you're on trial, you're working on trial, which is 24 hours a day. I don't care what you think. And you have a client like Alex Jones that's posting videos of the judge on fire and making statements out in front of the courtroom and putting tape over his mouth and going on his YouTube channel there and making a fool of himself, talking about the trial. He's not supposed to, talking to other witnesses in the trial. This is a nightmare. So for a mistake like that to happen, I can see it happening. I don't say that this is that much malpractice and that much misconduct, considering the circumstances of having a client as crazy as he was, where his own witnesses are saying, oh, he can't focus on something like that. His mind is racing too much. He can't focus. He can't sit still in the courtroom. He's getting up. He's going to the bathroom. He can't sit on a witness stand. He's coughing and choking and blowing his nose and got the throat going. Listen, that happens to me sometimes too. I get some acid reflux, and you'll start coughing, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can take lozenges, drink water, blow your nose. It's just this horrible thing. Something happens in the middle of the night, you could be up all night with it, no matter how much medication you take. Okay, fine. But the thing is, this guy's voice is his livelihood. He's making $1 million a day close to it, right? If he would lose 50, 60 pounds, it would do wonders for that acid reflux. It would do miracles for him, just like, me losing weight and I quit drinking and stuff like that, it helps me alleviate that. I definitely haven't had as many nights lately with that kind of crap going on. So, but the guy is just such a horrible mess. And I want you to take note too. Now, a lot of people, you can debate me and tell me, Ed, Alex Jones has been mostly right for 20 years. Then he changed during a certain part and they got a hold of him, blah, blah, blah. But if you listen to his own testimony, when he's off guard and he's talking about the growth of his career. First of all, if you want to notice, they mention nothing about Bohemian Grove whatsoever in any of that. Where did Alex Jones come from? Anybody who's been following Alex Jones know it started with his so-called sneaking into Bohemian Grove and videotaping in Bohemian Grove and then somehow confronting David Gergen at a bus stop or some weird thing like that. All very weird, all very suspicious. I believe it turns out later on it's some white supremacist guy, leaked him, got him in there. I don't know the whole facts, and I just saw some stuff that Robbie Martin was talking about. So there's no mention of that. But then he starts talking about how his career grew and he was getting on these stations. And every now and then he would say, and we lost a bunch of stations because of my politics. They didn't like that I was anti-war. They didn't like that I was saying 9/11 was an inside job. So right away what that tells me is he's very cognizant conscious about losing stations, about that the content of what he reports over the air is affecting his bottom line. It's affecting the number of stations he's on and the amount of income he can make, which to me is the exact opposite. Okay, I could be on another 50 stations if I want to. In fact, I'm meeting with a guy tomorrow. But I can add 75 stations. I have a guy contacting me all the time. We get you on 75 stations. Okay, but I'm trying to juggle this and balance all this and get some real work done in real life too as well. I have real clients that are in real trouble that I do really help in real life. Okay. It's a juggling act because sometimes we can use the show to benefit that, and we can use that to benefit the show. But it's a juggling act, and I'm doing the best I can with very little help. Okay, so it's clear to me that he has a lot of focus on what he says and how it affects his growth of his audience, the number of stations he's allowed on, and his sponsors, and the bottom line. You hear himself talking about how he checks the daily sales every single day. So you can't check the sales every single day and then say, well, last night I was talking about COVID, or last night I was talking about Sandy Hook, and the numbers went up, the numbers went down. And that's not going to affect your judgment. And that's not going to affect you, what you report on the air, what you talk about on the air. It's just not going to happen. Okay, so there's a couple of things there. Now, as far as the whole Sandy Hook issue, okay, they're asking him about other false flags, and they kind of land on some that are real, legit, suspicious stuff, man. Like we just had a guest on about Columbine. In fact, I think I have an on tonight. No, I was supposed to. But I have a guest from Columbine that's an actual witness there. She saw other shooters. You know, she gave statements to the police. They wanted to tell her she was wrong. You know, it's a great interview. But we're not playing that tonight. In fact, I'll put it up in the Patreon for the Patreon members. I'll put it up there this weekend. What I was going to say though. So he mentions Columbine. He mentions Boston bombing, which was, you know, it's a whole different kind of situation. You got Boston bombing. You got I forget the father's, the uncle's name, who was living with a CIA agent, you know, the CIA himself. Ruslan. My name is Ruslan. Okay, as soon as I heard that, when they asked the uncle, who are you? Ruslan. Anybody who says their name is a threat, you know, okay? My name, what is my name? I tell you my name. You know, that's a threat, you know. But what do you call it? Then, you know, witnesses falling out of helicopters, getting shot in interrogation. You know, the Russians warning us about these two guys. The FBI are in their house questioning them. You know, you got so much. And I think one of his conclusions was embarrassment. It's a cover-up, you know. So there was those two. Then there was Oklahoma City bombing, where it says, oh, yeah, Oklahoma City bombing. You know, I interviewed the first responders, and they saw the bombs. So you got all these other real cases with a lot of weight to them. But is he famous for that? No, he's famous for Sandy Hook, because he spent a lot more time talking about Sandy Hook than he did about any one of those other cases that have a lot more meat to them. Now, when Sandy Hook first came out, you know, and I was really on a wild conspiracy station back in those days, when I was first just starting out. And I thought a lot of those people were legit. It wasn't until I started dealing with them that I realized how crazy they were, and they were liars and con artists and scam artists and just crazy. For the most part, I don't think I've met too many that are, you know, I have a lot of respect for these days. But everyone was kind of saying, the conclusion was that Sandy Hook was some kind of a hoax. And I would watch these videos on YouTube, and I would see them. And, you know, they would bring up a lot of really weird, suspicious stuff. You know, like the grandpa guy who was talking about, you know, the kids coming around. He was crying. He was rehearsing on another video they found him. And that video of the crowd walking in one door, coming out the other door, and walking in a big giant circle. And then there was this business about how the fire department next door just happened to have 13 Christmas trees ready to go. Then I would see some debunking videos that would debunk all that. But they weren't given as much ratings on Google. By the way, it would have been nice if these families could sue YouTube as well for promoting this craziness. Because at the time, they just gave this stuff enormous. They were getting millions of hits. It wasn't until I really started meeting the people who produced and created those videos and being invited on shows or associated with those people. I remember one time there was like a whole station, an internet station. It was basically a Sandy Hook station, you know, and being invited on. They were so excited to have me on there, and they wanted me to do like a forensic analysis of some Photoshop, like live there on the interview, you know, like, and I'm saying to myself, this is their methods. This is their methods of investigation and research. This is how they do things. This, you know, this is ridiculous. And then I would say, you know, what these people were like behind the scenes in real life. And like I said, some of them came and tried to hire me. You know, one was batshit crazy. And then later on turned out to be so freaking batshit crazy when he was stalking me. It's just insane. Making these crazy videos about me, you know. And this guy tried to hire me, you know. Then it was another one too. People came to me and they wanted me to help him with his personal problems that he had created in his life due to his involvement in Sandy Hooks and stuff like that. And then there was Jim Fetzer, who was on the same station as me for a while. As a matter of fact, they had given him a really good time slot, but this kid who worked at the station and helped out at the station, had a little show at the station. He was such a dysfunctional kid. He actually lived in his girlfriend's mother's basement. Okay, no job. He's in a band, and he was doing like that sovereign stuff, where he didn't have his car registered and he got arrested for that. And I tried to tell him, I said, listen, if you don't go to court for that, you're going to have a warrant. They're going to pick you up. He goes, oh, no, I went to the court, but I didn't stand in the well. And I said the magic words and they got him. They picked him up. Anyway, so that kid, what he did was he goes to Jim Fetzer and says, hey, welcome to the station. Hey, they gave you this time slot, but why don't you swap with me? So he puts himself in prime time and he sticks Fetzer down at like 10 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday or something like that. So Fetzer wasn't such a bright guy with all of that. I had him on my show. I was told he needed to come on and get some publicity because he had some information that was putting his life in jeopardy. I put him on the show. The whole argument he had there and his evidence was very thin. If you listen to the show I did called Hookers and Blow, I talk all about it. But then at the end of the show, he grabs the mic and he starts screaming into the mic like a lunatic. And after the show, I says, well, that's it. I'm done with Fetzer. I'll never have him back on the show after that, the way he behaved. And couldn't contain himself or control himself, acted like a fool. But I was still in a mailing list with him, and it was in a loop. And if you hear about Alex Jones talk about how, he would send 10 emails a day, back to this big giant list he would send out. I was getting some anti-Semitic email from a certain former guest who's also been banned from the show. But it would be couched in the terms of, globalists and Zionists, but you could, when you read it, it was Jew hate that was just being secondary, secondhand Jew hate, Zionism, globalism. So there was one email that came right out and said, Jews are horrible people. Jews are evil. Jews are, And I says, whoa. I says, dude, you know what, man? This is way past the line. I've tolerated you, up until now, just out of respect for the guy that booked you on my show. But that's it. I'm done. Take me off your list. And Jim Fetzer pipes in and doesn't say, oh, no, Ed, he's talking about Zionists. Oh, no, Ed, he's talking about globalists. Jim Fetzer piped in and says, oh, no, Ed, he's right. Jews are bad. Okay, let me show you more evidence that Jews are horrible people and historically Jews are terrible people. So that was my ending with Jim Fetzer there. But my question to you is, if I'm getting that from Jim Fetzer, you're trying to tell me that Alex Jones wasn't getting that from Jim Fetzer from the start? How did I know after one visit with Halberg and after one visit with Fetzer that both of them had a screw loose and were unreliable and were no value to truth and reality? Okay? I had a guy, it was like a sponsor type guy that was helping out the show back in those days, and somebody gave him a radio show. Don't look at me. Somebody gave him a radio show. It was crazy. The first show he does is Flat Earth. And he has that guy Halberg on the show. On his show, not my show. And he's telling me all the time, Ed, I can get you Halberg. And I was like, you know what? This guy's like a nut. Plus his credentials were so freaking, I checked them out a little bit. They were just so weak and thin. There was really nothing there. And it turns out it was all crap and fake from the start. No one checks this stuff out. That's what I found out back in those days. No one really checked the damn thing out. It was all, if it was titillating and exciting, they'd put it on the air. So that's Sandy Hook. Now, a couple of things about this business, about the big Perry Mason moment this week was when somehow the defense got a hold of Alex Jones' cell phone. Now, here's what the process was with this, is that because there's a lot of stuff here that's in the weeds. You really got to be paying attention, okay? You can't listen to these secondhand news reports. You got to really watch the whole trial and have some familiarity with the way discovery works, the way cell phone forensics works, the way these reports get sent back and forth. So they had sent Jones's phone up to a digital forensic investigator. I'm not familiar with his name. And he sent back a report to Jones's attorney. And this had all of the information of Jones' cell phone in that report. And that report, or a link to that report, was included in a big document dump that's of updates that the attorney was turning over in normal discovery to the plaintiff's attorney. And plaintiff's attorney said, "Hey, are you sure you want to send us this? There's nothing here mistaken." You know, he says, "Oh, no, that's all fine." Okay. Now, one thing that's being missed by the average viewer here is that when they talk about medical information, that there was medical information on the cell phone. There were medical reports, okay, people need to understand, that Jones was not supposed to have, okay? There was some kind of psychiatric reports. I don't know if it had to do with this litigation or what, but Jones was not supposed to be in possession of these things to begin with, and he was not supposed to have turned these over to his own attorney, okay? They were both improperly in possession of those medical reports. That's why the judge is saying, yeah, delete anything medical, because nobody is supposed to have that. Even, you know, even if it's your own medical examination, only attorneys are allowed to have it. The litigants are not allowed to see. Well, you can see them. Okay, you can see them in your lawyer's office. You can see them in the judge's chambers. You know, and you can review it, but you can't take it home. You can't make copies. You can't disseminate. You can't circulate it. And I remember we had a case one time where it turned out that some of those reports were circulated by one therapist, circulated them with another therapist in violation of a judge's order. And we were able to use that. Now then you're seeing a lot of news reports now that they found child pornography on the data from Jones' computers and his emails. Now that's from years ago. That's from 2019. It's the same case. It has nothing to do with this more recent cell phone. We don't know what's on there. There could be pornography. We don't know what's on there. We know that there's intimate messages between Roger Stone and Alex Jones. We know Alex Jones has an interest in transvestite porn because we've seen it on camera on his phone. So that would be a rather extreme interest to have porn links on tabs on your phone right there, you know, to be viewed constantly. You know, that's a rather extreme interest. Okay, I don't know too many people that walk around with a porn tab on their phone, or much less one that's open to a certain porn site. Oh, a transvestite to boot. But these other emails with the child porn, now these were emails that were received from the public to the InfoWars email servers, I believe were never opened. Okay, so that has nothing to do with the current situation with these current, and there's no criminal investigation into that. That's all just a lot of misreporting and confusion that people are just putting out there for you, that's not making any sense. Now, as far as if you ever have to testify, please play these videos of Alex Jones on the stand, even when his own attorney is questioning him. The thing is, when you're on the stand and your own attorney is questioning you, listen to the question, okay? And just start with yes or no, and they'll if they want more from you, they'll get it out of you. The attorney just wants to get a couple of statements out of you that they can write down, that later on in closing, it's on the record now, it's in the record, okay? But then later on at closing, he can say, and remember when Alex Jones told you that he only made, a couple $100,000 a month? Remember that? And now they want all this money from him. He just doesn't have it. Now, if you notice, the plaintiff's attorney was going after Alex Jones and saying, well, hey, on these days here, you made $800,000. And Jones starts going into this big, giant, long explanation. Forget all that. You don't want to draw any attention to what the opposing attorney, what he has on his agenda, okay? If he says you made $800,000, say, well, yes, okay, on that day, yes, I did. Now he has to move on. You've answered the question. If he keeps asking the same question over and over again, your attorney can object and say, asked and answered. Okay, let's move on. He answered the question, Your Honor. Right? Then, when your attorney, it's your attorney says, Mr. Plaintiff over there asked you if you made $800,000. Is that a typical day, or maybe it's an average day, like, $50,000? Oh, yeah, that's so unusual. $800,000, that never happens. What a fluke that was. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, then you don't come off as some arguing, frantic, coughing, choking lunatic on the witness stand. Because that's what the audience, that's what the jury is going to remember. The more you talk and you're making jokes and telling stories during your opposition's case, you're bringing more life and more entertainment, more attention to it. Yes? No, I don't recall. I don't remember. I don't understand the question. Could you please repeat the question? Oh, no. It's so simple. It's so simple. You want it to be boring. You don't want any confrontation. You don't want to be arguing over a piece of paper with notes on it and going back and forth. It shocks me that Jones is so unaware of the process. He's just so unaware. How do you make $160 million and not understand the basics? Like, he doesn't even understand that he was found guilty because he didn't turn over all the discovery, And he was complaining, saying, the judge keeps saying I'm guilty. Yeah, because legally you're guilty. The case is over. The prima facie case is over. This is the penalty phase, Mr. Jones. Don't you understand that? And he doesn't understand. So I don't understand now how someone who's that dumb and clearly that crazy and unhinged, how does this guy make that much money? Look at the whole team he has working for him. That woman who was the corporate representative, it was a producer. Where do these people, and by the next day she was just beaten to a pulp, and then she did worse under direct examination by her own attorney, by the attorney representing Alex Jones, than she did under cross-examination by the plaintiff's attorney, because she couldn't remember and recite all the things they wanted her to memorize and recite. She couldn't recite all that, and she came off looking worse and more frazzled trying to remember the stuff they made up for her than she did when she was just answering the questions off the top of her head. So whoever prepared all these witnesses, loser, okay, you don't know what you're doing, man, okay? But I can't blame the seventh lawyer to take the bat, to get the bat there. You know what I mean? And this guy had to be willing to put up with anything. When you see six guys before you, man, drop their bat and glove and leave the field, okay, you got to know that you're dealing with a spoiled brat as a client, okay? And that's exactly what they had here. So I hope I shared with you some new information with all of that. Next coming up will be the Lauren Boebert episode there with Mr. Wheeler from American Muckraker Pack Incorporated and FireBoebert.com. Then after that will be Unmask Alice, the story of Go Ask Alice, and the author of that book. And she wrote another book about, I think it was Jay's Journal or something like that, about how this kid was caught up in Satanism before his suicide. All right, guys, thank you so much. A lot of new content up on Patreon. You want to go there to Patreon and sign up and become a Patreon and help support the show, especially right now. By the way, too, if anybody's out there, you know anything about the auto loans, a good deal on an auto loan, auto financing, I understand that PenFed is the way to go. But if you know some information out there, I'm in the middle of buying a car. Like I'm going to start. I'm fixing my credit a little bit more this weekend. So I'm going to start applying like Monday morning. So if you're out there and you got a good deal for me, let me know. Okay. Talk to you soon, guys. Thank you so much. Oh, and also too, forget it. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.